Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming to Tattle's Zoom programming. You can find all of our programs at events basically at tattle.org/events. And then most of our programs are also recorded like this one, and you can find that on our YouTube channel, which is Tattle Not Just Books. Tonight we have a Michigan notable author, Susie Finkbeiner. She wrote her book, I'm going to say it again wrong. No, that's wrong.
All
Don't
manner of things.
All manner of things, which was a wonderful, wonderful book. I can't believe I just botched the title yet again. But that was a 2020 Michigan notable book. And this time she's out with a new one called The All-American, which is, I have not read it yet, but it sounds fantastic. And I can't wait to listen to it on audio. So thank you so much, Susie, for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
So tell us about your writing process first. Let's get the boring stuff out of the way, even though I find it exciting that every single author has their own processes. What do you do? Do you get up in the morning or do you do it late at night? What do you like?
Well, it depends on how close I am to the deadline, because if I'm really close to the deadline, it's just a free for all. So it's whenever I have a moment. But generally, I write when my kids are at school. I have 3 kids. This year, they'll all be in high school. And so I drop them off at school and I come home and I spend the day writing. So it is my full-time job. And then around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm done for the day and I can do whatever I want then. But it seems like every book takes a different process than the one before it. I wish that they'd all be the same, because then it would be a lot easier for me. But for instance, with the All-American, I had a harder time writing this one. So I had to readjust my process slightly and just give myself some time to warm up every day to get to the novel writing.
Was it the subject matter or the time period or that was hard?
I think it was just I was worn out. I've had 9 full-length novels released in 10 years, and that's a lot. So I think I was just kind of my brain was a little tired.
And yet you wrote about such a semi-fun subject for the most part. I mean, baseball, that's definitely all-American for sure. Are you a fan? Did you play softball? Do you love baseball? How did that come about?
First of all, I was a tomboy. And so I was the girl who ran around the neighborhood with all the boys and did whatever they did. And so I have a special place in my heart for any female who kind of goes against the flow, goes against what's normal, as far as sports or whatever. So the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League has always appealed to me because of that. But I did play softball and I was not good. I'm surprisingly bad at baseball and softball, and I got hurt a lot because of it. But it was a lot of fun. So I much prefer going to a baseball game. I here in Grand Rapids, I cheer for the Whitecaps, the West Michigan Whitecaps, and actually, when I was in high school, I lived in Lansing, and I worked for a foundation that was raising funds to build the Lansing Lugnuts Stadium. So I'm conflicted when they have to play each other.
Okay, for sure. I can understand that. How did you do your research for baseball? Just knowledge, or did you actually go to one of those games and shadow managers or something like that?
I would have loved to do the job shadowing, but I wasn't able to. I actually had to dig into the rules that they would have had in the 50s, because baseball rules are so different now. The way the game is played is slightly different now. And especially with the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, because they did have a different set of rules, a different from year to year, they even had different rules about pitching styles and and different things like that. So I had to do a lot of reading, a lot of looking at rule books and things like that. But I'm a nerd, so it was very fun for me.
And you still, yet that part of it, that side of it's fun, and then the other side of it is serious. And some of your other novels are like that as well. Do you like that dichotomy of, light and serious? And what one do you like to write about more? What's easier?
That's a good question. I do enjoy learning about the way that people in history were resilient, the way that they overcame something that was difficult. And that's what appeals to me about more difficult eras in history, is just, how did people live through that? How did they overcome it? How did they survive? But definitely the fun parts are a lot easier to write. And with this one, it felt like I had two polar opposites. So, what's more American than baseball, and what's less American than being wrongfully accused of being a communist, and just putting them together and seeing what would happen. So that was really how the novel came to life in my mind while I was researching it.
And is the idea of putting the two together or writing about, either one, is that something, do you come up with ideas and then write them down and then later on come back to them? Or is it just, was it specifically with this one, was it something that you just automatically knew you were going to write about right away?
Well, it's really interesting because while we were in lockdown in 2020, I listened to a ton of audiobooks because that's what I could get from the library. And I was listening to a book called A Good American Family by David Marinus. And it was about his experience, or actually his father's experience, of living in Detroit and being one of the people that was accused of communism, and just what that did to the family. And at the same time, I was reading a book about the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League by Annika Arak. And I realized that the timelines met up.
Oh, nice.
And so I was like, oh, and then that's it. There was just a moment when I was like, oh, that would be interesting. And so I started doing a little bit of the research on both fronts and trying to see how I could work with themes and characterization to really do justice to both sides of the story.
What always amazes me too with writers is how they come up with the names of their characters. Because Bertha isn't, a most common. It's not uncommon, although I guess it is an older name too.
Mhm.
It would have been in that time frame. But did you read the name as you were researching or watching All American Girls Baseball League or anything like that?
Actually, I love this question. Bertha was my favorite great aunt. And she was one during World War II that she lived in Lansing. And so she went in and started working in the auto industry while all the men were off to war. So I always had this very special place in my heart for Aunt Bertha. We have the same birthday. And I've been saving the name Bertha for years. And I knew that this was the right novel for her. And in the book, her sister Flossie, she is the other point of view of the story. And Flossie is named after my great grandma Florence. So I use a lot of family names when I'm picking character names. I sometimes name characters after my friends so that when they're reading the book, they'll be like, hey, there's me. And I really like to just use normal names that people have. And if I'm stuck and I'm trying to find a name, I do go back and look at names of people that were born in 1920, things like that.
Right. That makes sense. Now Flossie would make me think of the the Bobbsey twins.
Yeah.
And that's sweet. I honestly didn't remember that Flossie was a nickname of Florence. So
Yeah.
I like that. So we did an interview with you before this for our blog on Fine Print, where we asked 3 to 5 questions to authors, and you came up with one of the questions was something secret that people might not know you about. It was something similar like that. And you said napkin folding, which is very interesting. So when you say napkin folding, are you like putting them into swans or boats, or you're not just rolling silverware like we see at the restaurant?
Nope. I worked and through college, I worked at an assisted living place. I was like the dining room lady. So I'd set the tables. And one of the things that they wanted us to do was to we would choose a napkin style and fold every single person's napkin in the same way. So we had fans, we had a swan and a boat, and then there were all these like different like pocket folds. So you would slide the silverware in, and the residents loved it. And I could go really fast back then. Now I think it would take me longer, but it was funny because I'm like, we are spending so much time doing this and I'm getting paid to do this. It's fine, but it's not one of those talents that I talk about a whole lot.
Yeah. What also I thought was funny is when we asked you if you were a Dewey number, what you would consider yourself to be, and you said 667.13, which is laundering. And that's hilarious because I can totally relate to that. I feel like laundry is never ending.
It's never ending. And I'm constantly like, how do I get this stain out? I don't even know. But fortunately, laundry detergent is better than it was in the 1950s. So it's a lot easier. But I have 3 teenagers. They're actually all in cross-country practice right now. So they're going to come home stinky and they're going to need me to do their laundry. It is never ending. And it's bad.
Are you working on a book right now?
I am. I'm actually finishing up a novella for a collection. This is my first time writing a novella, and it's very different. It's more condensed, so it's less than half the length of a regular novel. So I'm having to learn how to do that. And then after that, I will start researching another full-length novel, and this one will include some elements of folk music.
Oh, nice. Maybe some ukulele.
It is possible. I do play ukulele, not well, but it's fun. And my daughter also plays ukulele, so that's always fun. But I did buy an auto harp for the research of this book, and it's really easy, but it's not. So I'm trying to learn how to really play it.
So novellas, I would say they'd be kind of hard too, because it's like you have to condense a lot of information in such a short amount and then end it and have it feel like it ended. That's always, which is weird, because I just read and I absolutely love John Grisham, but his last book, the title escapes me now, and there was 3 short stories in there. Each one I'm like, oh, these all could be full-length novels. I just wanted them to keep continuing. I didn't feel like there was closure on any of them. So that I can imagine that is very hard. And who knows, maybe he did it on purpose and he'll come out with those 3 full-length novels later, but
maybe. And I'm in this collection, I'm the last, because it's so Rachel Scott McDaniel is writing World War I era, and then Allison Pittman is writing World War II era, and I'm writing the Vietnam era. So I'm last. So I have to finish it well. Like, and that's really, I'm like, trying not to stress out too much.
right, exactly. So in your free time, besides writing, what are you reading right now? Who's your favorite author, or who do you have on your bedside stand?
Well, I've been working on Demon Copperhead for a very long time. That one I've been reading for probably 4 months. I can only read it in small snippets because it's heavy. It's really
Yes.
heavy. But right now on my Libby on my phone, I have to look at it because I can't remember the title, but it's oh, and it won't work for me right now. But I'm listening to one called The 100 Years of Lenny and Margot. And that's by Marianne Cronin. And so far it's lovely, but I think it's gonna break my heart. I think it is. Um, and then I also have some books that I have to read for endorsement, but I'm really looking forward to rereading Cloud Cuckoo Land. That's going to be a reward for after I turn in my novella.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read Demon Copperhead, or I listened to Demon Copperhead because I knew I would never get through it reading. I had to, because you don't, it's not easy to fast forward as much as it is to page through. So and I tend to do that with things that I know are going to be hard and heavy. So it definitely was. And in that same vein, I think a narrator is the best part of it, or make or breaks a book. The book can be the best thing, but if it has a horrible narrator, are you in love with your narrators? Do you like who was chosen? And did you have a choice?
I never have a choice, which is okay. Tavia Gilbert has read most of my books, and she's incredible, but she wasn't able to be on this project. So the two ladies, they're two narrators for this. One is reading the part of Flossie. Flossie is an 11-year-old girl. Her voice sounds like an 11-year-old girl, even though she's a grown-up. I don't know how she does it, but these two narrators did such an incredible job. And I I'm always nervous about listening to my audiobooks because if you never know. What if they don't get the spirit of it? But my experience has always been fantastic. And I'm just so proud to be able to work with these ladies. Stephen King once said that audiobooks are unforgiving. If there's something wrong with the story, you're going to hear it in the audiobook because your brain just processes it differently. So I'm very thankful that these ladies do such a great job.
Yeah, and another author was saying that since she likes audiobooks so much herself, that it started changing the way she wrote books. So you didn't say like he said and she said or they said or as much. And I found that interesting. I never even thought about that, but it is true when you're looking at some books and there's a lot of, so where the dialogue's going, but in an audiobook you don't really want that because how the narrator inflects their voice, you can tell the different characters.
Yeah. And one thing that I do, and this has been my habit all through my career, is that I read my books out loud to myself as I'm editing, because you do hear different things. You hear where there's repetition or a sentence it sounds funny, because I know the audiobooks are more utilized than paper books right now, which is great. I think any way that people want to experience a book is fantastic. But yeah, I want to serve my readers well by giving them a good product. And yeah, I love audiobooks too. It makes a big difference for me.
It does. Does Linda or Deb or Michelle, if you guys have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask at any time. I think my list of questions are starting to run out, but is there anything else you want to tell us about you and your books? And what's your favorite book that you wrote of yours?
Oh, that is such a hard question.
That's like saying who your favorite child is, right? But
yeah, they're not here. I'll tell you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have a favorite child. I would say that The All-American it's between The All-American and All Manner of Things. Those two books. I had the privilege of having 2 years to write each of those books. And so the experience was much more drawn out for me. I spent more time with the characters. I feel like having more than 1 year to write a novel just makes for a better novel for me. I know other authors can write 5 a year and they're great. But that's not me. So I think that just having the extra time with those novels made a big difference.
Yeah, I think it probably shows too as well. Um, it's people, some authors, and not all, but that put out many a year, it tends to be a little bit of the same, but they can be fun as well. But you can tell, especially ones like yours, they definitely have to be well researched, and it shows in your writing for sure. And I appreciate that. Does
Thank
anyone
you.
have any questions at all for Susie? I know it's kind of weird.
You can ask me anything.
Yes. Ooh, anything. Do you have any pets?
I do. I have a cat. Her name is Flannery, and she has left the room because I have not included her in this. She's definitely a diva.
Right. Well, I thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. I know the public libraries, ours especially, just absolutely enjoy when authors can take a moment and out of their time to speak with us and to support public libraries, which is just amazing, and we love it so much.
Well, I
I
appreciate public libraries greatly. And I just I keep thinking back to when we were all locked down, and I had 3 kids at home and we're all readers. And so we were running out of reading material. And the librarians would, in the dead of winter, run out to our car and like throw books in the trunks. And just that dedication, and the way that the public libraries really kept our societies floating in a lot of ways. And so I will never ever forget how important our public libraries are. And so just, it's an honor for me to be able to talk to people at the public libraries, because I just love you all so much. You're so good.
Oh, thank you so much. We like to hear that, but we can't do it without people like you and anyone else, the people who come to these programs and check out books, people who love reading. Absolutely.